Good evening and welcome back to another segment of In the Upper Room Outreach Ministries, The Monitor. I'm so glad you stayed tuned for this part of the program, especially because I'm joined by two dynamic, passionate, very interesting young women here today. I would like you to meet directly to my right is Emily Joy Sakazwe, who joins us from Zambia. As actually, she's in the United States as a delegate to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. She serves as executive director for Women for Change, and you're going to hear what that's about. But to the other side of Emily is Monet Cooper. She's with Jubilee USA. That's an organization that deals with international debt issues and global poverty. So first of all, I'm going to start with you, Monet, and would you tell us exactly what Jubilee does? I gave that overview, but how do you do that?
Well, Jubilee USA, we can't do what we do alone. We're a network of 80 plus organizations. These organizations are based in the United States, and we work in solidarity with our international partners on international debt issues in the global south. So when we speak of international debt, this is World Bank debt, this is IMF debt, International Monetary Fund debt in Africa. The lending arm is the African Development Bank. In Latin America, it's the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank. So that's Jubilee.
Wow. How'd you get involved with that?
Well, when I was in graduate school, I wasn't sure if I wanted to move on to pursue my PhD, but I said, while I'm deciding what I want to do, I really want to work with a nonprofit who's doing something I'm passionate about. And so I found Jubilee, or Jubilee found me, and I began working there. I think one thing that I love about Jubilee is that they really work on informing people about what's happening in international debt and global poverty, but also empowering them and saying there are ways that you can get involved and that you can stop global poverty. The reason why we're here talking with you is in particular about the issue of debt and how countries become impoverished when we turn on the television and we see the Save the Children, or we see an Oprah special and she's building a school, or we see brochures about giving money to help children in Africa and Latin America and South Asia. A lot of times we may wonder, well, why are these people impoverished, and why is their aid continually being sent there, and there's this cycle of poverty continuing. What Jubilee says, and what many of our partners say, is because of this debt. And this debt has come from dictatorships where it was quote unquote loaned to these countries. Dictators said that they needed the money. The money went to guns or to fund wars. In many ways, these dictators like Idi Amin and Mobutu Sese Seko were put in place by the United States, by the UK, and now they're turning around and saying, you owe us this money, even though they lent it. And that's odious debt, debt that was lent to dictators. There's also illegitimate debt that's on the lending side. One example of this is in Zambia's case with the Vulture Fund, or what we call the Vulture Fund. Donegal International is a company that bought Zambia's debt, a piece of Zambia's debt, as it was going through the process of getting its debt canceled. The debt was worth $15 million. They bought it at the dirt cheap price of $3.3 million, and they turned around and sued Zambia for $50 million. How
do they do that? On what basis do they sue them?
They say that Zambia owes them taxes, back taxes, and interest, and so many people in civil society, grassroots, are incensed. In addition to people in Zambia, I think so. That's one issue people can mobilize behind by contacting their member of Congress. We have a place on our website, www.jubileeusa.org. Another way is also with the Jubilee Act, and I'm going to talk briefly about the Jubilee Act, and then Emily will talk about will kind of illustrate the ways in which these conditionalities and the things that the Jubilee Act eliminates would eliminate if it's passed, or when it's passed. We're not going to say if.
Is the Jubilee Act something like before our government locally or
Yes,
nationally?
not yet. The Jubilee Act, it will be introduced in the House this spring, and so when it's actually before it, but people don't have to wait until it's introduced to contact their member of Congress about it. Particularly Senator Biden, who is a Delaware senator and who is chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is where that piece of legislation will come out of when it's introduced in the Senate. And the Jubilee Act cancels the debt of 67 countries. It eliminates conditionalities or stipulations placed on countries getting their debt canceled. So they go through the highly indebted poor countries process and are asked to privatize their resources or to sell their resources, often at detriment to their countries and the people in those countries. And finally, for transparency or a debt audit on the lending side. So that's what the Jubilee Act does, and we ask people to contact Senator Biden, contact their representatives as well, to support the Jubilee Act, to co-sponsor the Jubilee Act when it's introduced this spring.
Wonderful. And Emily, you've come